Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I thought I was talking to myself. And good morning to those of you that are here with us online this morning. We're delighted to have you. I'm Reverend Mary Marie Shelton. I'm the community spiritual leader here. No one is paying any attention to me. Well, there we go. Okay, very good. Hey, wonderful. So we want to take an opportunity to make sure that everybody feels welcome before we begin. So I want to invite those of you that are sitting down to stand up and walk around. Be sure to say hello to a whole bunch of people. At least 3. Make sure you greet at least 3 people, particularly somebody you haven't met or haven't seen for a while. Those of you at home, take a moment to greet yourself. Recognize that you are important to us and you are welcome here. We embrace you and we welcome you. Give us a couple minutes. We'll be right back to sing the morning song. All right. Let's see. Well, we're glad to see everybody this morning. This is good. It's a beautiful sunny day. Happy Palm Sunday. We are almost at Easter. So we have, as you might have guessed from the harp up front here, we have Christine Tillis with us this morning. She is a harpist, a singer, a healing artist, an award-winning composer, and she loves to help listeners connect with the presence of the divine. She shared her music over 3 decades, from majestic French cathedrals, the Emerald Hills of England, to the United Nations, Harvard, and numerous churches and healing centers throughout the United States. And she is back with us. She is the founder of the Sound Healing Temple Arts in San Rafael, where she offers healing sessions and musical experiences. You can learn more about her from her website, christinetullis.com. But let's welcome back Christine Tillis, and we're going to sing a Michael Stillwater song. She's going to talk to you about that. Woo-hoo-hoo! Please stand.
Hello, beautiful friends.
Good morning.
So great to be here with you today. So some of you may be aware, some of you may not yet be aware, that our beloved Michael Stillwater has crossed over. He passed over on February 15th at his home in Switzerland. Very suddenly. This was very unexpected. He was not ill, but we will be honoring him here in Marin on April 24th. There is a celebration of his life. You can talk to me about that, get more details. It will also be posted on Facebook. But what a beautiful soul. For those of you who are aware of his music, he was just such a beautiful, radiant being, filled with love for life and people and the divine, and left a beautiful legacy of gorgeous music that those of us who knew and loved him will continue to sing and share. So this first piece is called In the Name, and I invite you to join me. This is a very jubilant, heart-opening, beautiful song to God. We sing in the name of the one, eternal, infinite being. We sing in the name of the one, eternal, infinite being. We sing in the
And please silence your cell phones so that they won't interrupt the service as we prepare to center together and turn within. And this morning, Reverend M. Louise Mann is our morning platform practitioner. She's going to come and pray us in.
As we just take a breath, and breathe in, remembering that we are one with that divine presence. Every single moment, this is the truth of our being. And that each one of us is treasured and valued and blessed. And that we are all filled with that goodness and joy and love of spirit, always available in every moment. And so I know, as we remember who we truly are in spirit, that we just relax into that presence of the divine that lives in us and one with us, and with each and every other person. And so knowing that we are divinely guided, we are loved, we are treasured, we simply open our hearts and minds to beloved Reverend Mary's message this morning, knowing that we are guided and we are loved and we are supported and we are truly blessed. And so with just thanksgiving for this, I just say, and we all say together, and so it is.
This is a song that came through. Songs are just inspirations, they just arrive. So I don't even say I wrote them, I say I received them. I received this song. This is about all of us and our planet and our beautiful heart connections and how we're here to serve and uplift each other through love. It's called The Circle. Something tells me that life's a gift. Something tells me that there's a purpose. Something tells me we came to love. Something tells me that makes a difference
Beautiful circle. We are continuing with our theme for the year, Sacred Connections, and in May, we have been looking at, not May, March. I've launched us 2 months ahead all of a sudden, connecting with sacred traditions. And I've talked about indigenous traditions, religious traditions, children's traditions. As we're going into, as this is Palm Sunday and Passover is beginning this week, we're looking at that very same period of time that is called Holy Week, that time between the triumphal entry into Jerusalem and Jesus' execution and resurrection. Now, we'll get into the details of the likelihood of any of the stories that are connected to that, except to recognize from a human perspective, moving into Jerusalem is an interesting choice, and moving into Jerusalem the way that Jesus did is an interesting choice. So I wanted to talk about family traditions today, and I had in my mind the story that you probably know about a newly married couple. The wife is making dinner, and when she goes to serve the roast, her husband can see that she's cut both ends of it off before she cooked it. And so he asks her about that. You know, people learn things from their families, various things about what's the best way to do something, what spice works best, or what works best to make something flavorful, and he doesn't know. So he says to her, does that make it juicier if you cut the ends off of it? And she says, I have no idea. That's how my mother does it. So that's what I do. We'll ask her when we're over there. So the next time they're at the house, it comes up in the conversation, and she says, Mom, Fred asked me about why I cut the ends off the roast when I put it in the oven to roast it, and, I realized I really don't know why. But you always did that, so I thought I'd ask you. And she said, well, isn't that funny? I don't actually have a reason for that. I do that because that's what your grandmother did. And so we've kind of always done it that way. Well, let's ask her. Fortunately, grandmother was still alive. So the next Sunday, when they were all together for dinner, the young bride says to Grandma, Fred asked me a couple weeks ago why I was cutting the ends off the roast when I put it into the oven. And I only did that because Mom always did it. So I asked her why, and she said she always did it because you always did it. And we just wondered, what's the reason? What's the motivation for doing that? And Grandma said, my pan was too small. I always cut the ends off so the roast would fit in the pan. Had nothing to do with the flavor or the tenderness or anything to do with the roast. But it was a family tradition that got passed down. And I love that story about how we get into family traditions that we carry on because they feel familiar and we like how they feel, but maybe we don't know why they originated, and maybe what they're actually teaching us isn't necessarily an accurate truth that's useful. Do you know what I mean? So as we go through our lives, we find that we have these different things that we've learned as children that we may never have questioned. I was looking up odd family quirks and traditions, and one of the stories that came up was this picture. Going off to Halloween as Kiss. Wow. Mom has a sign that says, I'm with the band. She's probably the wisest of the group there. Now, I would imagine that when these kids grow up, they'll take some joy from these photographs of what they did with their family, but at the same time, they realize it's it dates them somewhat, that they were dressed up as a band that now nobody knows anymore. So one of the stories I came across was at Christmas, one family gives each other, so everybody receives, a set of new underwear. And once you receive your underwear, you have to say, ooh, thank you, really loudly, stand up and put the underwear on your head to show everyone. And then it has to stay on your head until every present has been given out and opened. Now that's one I had never heard of before. What I'm curious about is, how did that start? You know, it must have been that one of the little kids did it. This is my guess. And then everybody in the family just emulated it. Here's another one. Another family had life-size cardboard cutouts of their grandfather and their cousin, who had both passed away, and they'd bring them out on family holidays. It's a little like the Inca tradition of mummifying your past relatives and having them in niches around the house, taking them with you when you traveled and so on. Not necessarily the things that we all do. So we find that families can be a little quirky and a little fun, and that you never really know what your kids are going to say that might get passed on. We have a story that we pass on in our family that my ex-husband, when he was a kid, on Father's Day, had a gift to give to his dad. He was so excited about being the one who was going to be able to give his dad this gift. And so on Father's Day, when the time came, he had it behind his back. He went out, he handed it to his dad, and then before his dad could even comment on the wrapping, he said, "It's a tie." So every year around Father's Day, we tell this story about it's a tie. Or sometimes at Christmas, when somebody's about to open some big package, somebody will say, "It's a tie," so that we can pass that tradition on. Although if you were sitting there and suddenly somebody said it's a tie and you'd never been with us before, it would seem possibly a little strange, right? So we get these traditions that go along. I can remember when I was in grade school, maybe 7th grade or so, I was scratching my nose. I said, "My nose itches," and my best friend said, "Oh, you're going to kiss a fool." I'd never heard that before, but in her family, with her French-Canadian mother, if your nose itched, it meant you were going to kiss a fool. That was a saying I had never heard of. Are you familiar with that? No, I've seen other things, like if your nose itches, something else is going to happen to you, but not that. Edward Furlong said, "I don't think anyone has a normal family." And I suspect that's probably true. Doug Copeland said, "People are pretty forgiving when it comes to other people's families. The only family that ever horrifies you is your own." And I know that we're not horrified by our families when we're little bitty people. You know, we love to maintain the traditions that are familiar to our family, the way that we do things. They're fun, they're meaningful. We have our own sayings, our own superstitions and beliefs, our own holiday traditions. We have our own attitudes toward things. We learn our biases and prejudices from our families, and we learn that our families have secrets. And they have assumptions, and they have things that only exist behind closed doors, things that other people aren't supposed to know about in the family. So we discover the shadows as well as the lights in the family. And as I said earlier, we never know what our little kids are going to do. One lady says, "I was driving with my 3 young children one warm summer evening when a woman passenger in the convertible ahead of us stood up and waved, and she was stark naked. She said, I was reeling from the shock when I heard my 5-year-old shout from the back seat, 'Mom, that lady isn't wearing a seatbelt.'" You never know where the attention is going to go or what's going to be said. So that's a story, I imagine, that get passed on in their family, right? Little stories about things that people have said or done that were touching to us. But we don't tell the ones that are humiliating or embarrassing. We might tell them within the family, or the first time somebody brings a girlfriend home. We might tell a story like that. But generally speaking, the worse they are, the less we say about them. The truth is that at some point, we need to recognize that our family isn't perfect. They're just our family. And sometimes there are things that let us down or disappoint us or embarrass us, or that we need to decide we're not going to pass on, or we're not going to make that a tradition in our own family. You know, I grew up in theater. I did a lot of theater as I was growing up. And you know, you never wish an actor good luck. You know that, right? Instead, you're supposed to say break a leg. It's like reverse psychology. Yeah? The other thing you're never supposed to do is name the play Macbeth in the theater. That's considered very bad luck. Actors refer to it as the Scottish play. They never say that word. And one of the things I came to discover later that is traditional in live theaters is that most theaters are considered to be haunted. Now, I can remember in college, there were certain, particularly the Showboat Theater at the University of Washington, none of the theaters, except the biggest one, that I performed in there still exist. There were more of them, you know, before. But the Showboat Theater had been around for a long time, and there were rumors about it being haunted and who it was that haunted it. And usually it was tech crews who would talk about things that they experienced when everybody else was gone, when the actors were no longer there, and they'd be getting things ready for the next performance, and they would hear things or sometimes see things out of the corners of their eyes. These are traditions. The stories are traditions. The experiences of what we do with our family, those things are all traditions. And when we begin to recognize that not all families do what our family does, or maybe we begin to recognize that certain things that our family does don't sit well with us or wouldn't sit well with other people, then we begin to notice that maybe we want things to be a little bit different, yeah? Let me talk about good luck and bad luck, depending upon what people believe. Don't walk under a ladder. It's bad luck. So is opening an umbrella indoors, letting a black cat cross your path, 13 at table, spilling salt. How many of you have a family that talked about one or more of those? Or believed one? Step on a crack, you'll break your mother's back. Anybody heard any of these? Yeah. So we've heard them either from other kids or we heard them in our own families. Dragonflies are good luck. Did you know that? I never knew that. So is crossing your fingers. Unless you do it behind your back, then it means you're lying. And here's one I didn't know. When someone dies at home, they must be taken out feet first, and you have to cover all the mirrors before that happens. Didn't know any of that. So the different traditions depend on the particular family, what it is that your family grew up with and holds dear. Robert Brault said, a family is a group of people who keep confusing you with someone you were as a kid. And I would wager to say that the corollary to that is that siblings and offspring are people who suddenly behave like kids when they're back with their family of origin. They fight about the same things, they compete about the same things, whatever it is. So now, as we move into Palm Sunday, this is a Sunday when Jesus rode a donkey, apparently, into Jerusalem. Now, it is an echo of an earlier time in the Hebrew Bible where Solomon rides into Jerusalem on a donkey. And when he does it, it is because his father David is dying and David has selected him to be the successor. Maybe he's the oldest son. He's supposed to be the successor, but at the same time, his brother is surreptitiously having a campaign rally because he wants to be the one. So Bathsheba, David's wife, Solomon's mother, cooks up this thing of Solomon riding into Jerusalem triumphantly because this is the mark of a king coming in. So these generations later, I don't know whose intention it was for Jesus to ride in on a donkey, and if that was a statement of his kingship, but it would have been recognized by Romans as a triumphal kind of statement. So he goes into Jerusalem on a donkey. The people put palm branches down. They put their coats down. You can see what's wrapped around the palm up here on the altar that Randy did this morning, so that Jesus could ride over those. And that is the kind of acknowledgement of his stature as the Messiah, as the King coming into Jerusalem. And so I wonder if he had any inkling of what was coming within a short time, what was coming within a few days in his life. I wonder what he was thinking he was setting into motion or doing as he was doing that on that day, where all the people were out and they were triumphant and they greeted him, and it was a big demonstration, right? It made the Romans nervous. But I thought back to an earlier time in the Gospel of Mark, which was really interesting to me, and I came across this as I was thinking about this and researching this yesterday, speaking about what's appropriate within a family. What's a particular family tradition? What do families teach you to not do as well as to do? So this is from the book of Mark. Then Jesus entered a house, and again a crowd gathered so that he and his disciples were not even able to eat. When his family heard about this, they went to take charge of him, for they said, "He is out of his mind." His mother and his brothers and maybe sisters came to get him because they were worried about his behavior. They were worried about the things that he was saying and the kind of attention he was drawing to himself. Remember, they were under occupation. And so then a couple verses later, it says, "Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him." They were going to quietly take him away. Now think about Mary, his mother, not as the Virgin Mary, the mother of God, the blessed humma humma, all that. Think of her as a woman with an oldest son who is getting a lot of attention from other Jewish people, other Hebrews, but also drawing the attention of Roman authorities, where you can tell that people are getting nervous, people are getting concerned about what he's saying and doing. Think about how she worries about that son of hers. So she has other children, they're kind of normal. But here's this one, and she doesn't know what to think of him. It isn't that he's not wise or gentle or amazing, but at that time, there also was a belief that if you could cast out demons, if you could heal somebody's mental illness or epilepsy, that you did so by the power of a devil, a demon yourself. So she had great reason to be worried about his mental health and what was going to happen to him. And she was right, because within a short time, and we don't know how much before Passover this happened, within a short time, not only was he arrested, but he was tortured and executed, and she stood and watched him die. Her firstborn son, her child. He had been through all of this. Perhaps she believed he had brought it upon himself. He had brought a lot of attention that wasn't necessarily positive to their community. And now he was suffering the end result of that behavior. Did she know he was going to be looked upon as a Messiah, as a great leader, as somebody who thousands of years later would be a hero? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not then. So imagine how she felt coming with her kids. It doesn't say she came with her husband, so God knows Joseph was older. Maybe he had already passed. She came with her children to appeal to him, "Come home with us. We're worried about you. Let us take care of you." And Jesus said, when they told him, when they came in to get him, they said, there was a crowd sitting around him, And they told him, your mother and brothers are outside looking for you. And he didn't say, oh, I'll be just a minute. Let me go talk with them. Let me calm them down. No, he didn't even go out. He said to the crowd, who are my mother and my brothers? Only the people who do the will of God, like all of you good people here, my adoring fans. That's what that looked like. And imagine her concern and heartbreak when she heard that he was not going to come out. He wasn't going to go home with them. He wasn't going to even talk to them. Maybe he was afraid they would talk him out of what he needed to do. So imagine all of that going on, and then that's all happened. Then on Palm Sunday, this happens. Huge amounts of attention, huge numbers of people out to see him. The Romans were definitely not going to overlook that. So we recognize that as far as the family situation is concerned, Jesus was not necessarily having staunch support in his family or from his own neighborhood or friends. But yet all of these other folks in Jerusalem and all around him, they were making him into a big deal. Helen Keller said once, what we have once enjoyed, we can never lose. All that we love deeply becomes a part of us. So for all that they might have been worried about him, it's very likely that they never stopped loving him. They never stopped wanting him in the bosom of the family. Just as we feel about our relatives who have wandered off on a unique path of their own that we don't understand. My mother told me once when I was in the School of Ministry that my Aunt Pat didn't understand what I was doing, being a staunch Catholic that she was. She didn't understand what I was doing. And I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something about Jesus. And my mother said, oh, good, well, as long as you believe in Jesus, you'll be all right. I didn't go any further into the philosophy because fear was not what I was trying to evoke in my mother at that moment, you know. The recognition that we see Jesus as the great example, as a brother, as a mentor, but not as a unique, one-of-a-kind, never-before manifestation of God in the world. We recognize that manifestation is everywhere in everyone all the time. So even in those of our families and our friends who have gone off in directions that we don't understand, that we worry about them, that we're not sure why they make this choice or why they live this way, that we never put them out of our hearts, no matter what they've done or said to us, no matter how painful or difficult it's been, no matter about the times that we've been rejected or ignored or forgotten, or it seems that way, by them, yeah? Richard Bach said once, the bond that links your true family is not one of blood, but of respect and joy in each other's lives. I'm not entirely sure that's true, but I do think that we get very close to people who are like-minded. We feel a sense of security and connection with those folks. They become, as they would say in Hawaii, ohana, which is chosen family, chosen family. Ernest Holmes wrote in Living Without Fear, while all people have the same origin, no two are alike, except in ultimate essence. One God, Father of us all, or we might say parent of us all, but numberless sonships, Ernest calls them. Every one of us has our own connection to that, each one unique in a universe of wholeness. Man is an individualized center of God consciousness, each one of us, and spiritual power. And as complete as we know ourselves to be, we know ourselves only as we comprehend our relation to the whole. In other words, when we don't recognize that not only are we part of our family, We're part of that infinite allness. There's no place else for us to be. We're always in that, and in that sense, we are connected to all of those people that we have ever loved, no matter what has transpired between us in the interim period of time. There's a story about Leo Buscaglia's mother. I don't know who told this story, but it must have been something they heard from him. It says, it was the night after his father came home and said it looked as if he would have to go into bankruptcy because his partner had absconded with the firm's funds. His mother went out and sold some of her jewelry to buy food for a sumptuous feast. And other members of the family scolded her for it. But she told them, the time for joy is now, when we need it the most, not next week. Her courageous act rallied the family. But it was an outlier to do that. Who sells their valuables to have a great feast that's going to be eaten up and digested and gone? And yet that was what they needed to have a sense that they were loved, they were cared for, they could get through this, it was going to be okay. Does this make sense, what I'm saying? So as we look into this, we find that our own family, too, is one that's full of light and shadow. It's full of amazing, brilliant, funny, delightful moments that we can treasure. And it's also full of these questions, these shadowy corners, these places where secrets were kept, that were kept from us, or that we were told not to tell, or that we discovered later, things that happened that maybe we would not have been shamed by, but somebody in our family was, and it became a secret. Do you know what I'm talking about here? Yeah. So on a lighter note, I want to share with you that I have a little story here. This is a little bit longer than some of the ones I read to you, about an odd tradition that began with an older couple. It began as a rational response to a problem, and then kind of evolved from there. This was written by Michael Gartner, who used to be the editor of a number of newspapers at various times, and also NBC News. He even won a Pulitzer Prize in 1997. He wrote this: "My father never drove a car." Well, that's not quite right. I should say, I never saw him drive a car. He quit driving in 1927 when he was 25 years old, and the last car he drove was a 1926 Whippet. In those days, he told me when he was in his 90s, to drive a car, you had to do things with your hands and do things with your feet and look every which way. And I decided you could walk through life and enjoy it, or drive through life and miss it. At which point, my mother, a sometimes salty Irish woman, chimed in, "Oh, bullsh," she said. "He hit a horse." Well, my father said there was that too. So my brother and I grew up in a household without a car. The neighbors all had cars. The Collinses next door had a green 1941 Dodge. The Van Lanninghams across the street had a gray 1936 Plymouth. The Hobsons, 2 doors down, had a black 1941 Ford, but we had none. My father, a newspaper man in Des Moines, would take the streetcar to work and often as not walk the 3 miles back home. If he took the streetcar home, my mother and brother and I would walk the 3 blocks to the streetcar stop to meet him and walk home together. My brother David was born in 1935 and I was born in 1938, and sometimes at dinner we'd ask how come all the neighbors had cars, but we had none. "No one in my family drives," my mother would explain, and that was that. But sometimes my father would say, "But as soon as one of you boys turns 16, we'll get one." It was as if he wasn't sure which one of us would turn 16 first. But sure enough, my brother turned 16 before I did, So in 1951, my parents bought a used 1950 Chevy from a friend who ran the parts department at a Chevy dealership downtown. It was a 4-door, white model, stick shift, fender skirts, loaded with everything, and since my parents didn't drive, it more or less became my brother's car. Having a car without being able to drive didn't bother my father, but it didn't make sense to my mother. So in 1952, when she was 43 years old, she asked a friend to teach her to drive. She learned in a nearby cemetery, the place where I learned to drive the following year, and where a generation later I took my 2 sons to practice driving. The cemetery was probably my father's idea. "Who can your mother hurt in a cemetery?" I remember him saying once. For the next 45 years or so, until she was 90, my mother was the driver in the family. Neither she nor my father had any sense of direction. But he loaded up on maps, though they seldom left the city limits, and appointed himself navigator. Seemed to work. Still, they both continued to walk a lot. My mother was a devout Catholic, and my father an equally devout agnostic, an arrangement that didn't seem to bother either of them through their 75 years of marriage. He retired when he was 70, and nearly every morning for the next 20 years or so, he would walk with her the mile to St. Augustine's Church, and she would walk down and sit in the front pew. And he would wait in the back until he saw which of the parish's 2 priests were on duty that morning. If it was the pastor, my father would then go out and take a 2-mile walk, meeting my mother at the end of the service and walking her home. If it was the assistant pastor, he'd just take a 1-mile walk and then head back to the church. He called the priests Father Fast and Father Slow. After he retired, my father almost always accompanied my mother whenever she drove anywhere, even if he had no reason to go along. And if she were going to the beauty parlor, he'd sit in the car and read, or go take a stroll, or, if it was summer, have her keep the engine running so he could listen to the Cubs game on the radio. In the evening then, when I'd stop by, he'd explain. Now this, what his father says to him, this is another belief system, right? Cubs lost again. The millionaire on second base made a bad throw to the millionaire on first base, so the multimillionaire on third base scored. If she were going to the grocery store, he would go along to carry the bags out and to make sure she loaded up on ice cream. As I said, he was always the navigator. And once when he was 95 and she was 88 and still driving, he said to me, "You want to know the secret of a long life?" "I guess so," I said, knowing it was probably be something bizarre. "No left turns," he said. "What?" I said. "No left turns," he repeated. "Several years ago, your mother and I read an article that said most accidents that old people are in happen when they turn left in front of oncoming traffic. As you get older, your eyesight worsens, you can lose your depth of field," it said, your depth of perception. "So your mother and I decided never again to make a left turn." "What?" I said again. "No left turns." He said, "Think about it. 3 rights is the same as a left, and that's a lot safer. So we always make 3 rights." "You're kidding," I said, and turned to my mother for support. "No," she said, "your father's right. We make 3 rights. It works." But then she added, "Except when your father loses count." I was driving at the time. I almost drove off the road as I started laughing. "He loses count?" I asked. "Yeah," my father admitted, that sometimes happens, but it's not a problem. You just make 7 rights and you're okay again." I couldn't resist. "Do you ever go for 11? I asked. "No," he said, "if we miss it at 7, we just come home and call it a bad day. Besides, nothing in life is so important it can't be put off another day or another week." My mother was never in an accident, but one evening she handed me her car keys and said she decided to quit driving. That was in 1999 when she was 90. She lived 4 more years until 2003. My father died the next year at 102. They both died in the bungalow they had moved into in 1937 and bought a few years later for $3,000. Side note, he says, 60 years later, my brother and I paid $8,000 to have a shower put in the tiny bathroom. The house had never had one. My father would have died then and there if he knew the shower cost nearly 3 times what he paid for the house. He continued to walk daily. He had me get him a treadmill when he was 101 because he was afraid he'd fall on the icy sidewalks, but he wanted to keep exercising. And he was of sound mind and sound body until the moment he died. One September afternoon in 2004, he and my son went with me when I had to give a talk in a neighboring town, and it was clear to all 3 of us that he was wearing out. Though we had the usual wide-ranging conversations about politics and newspapers and things in the news. A few weeks earlier, he had told my son, "You know, Mike, the first 100 years are a lot easier than the second 100. At one point in our drive that Saturday, he said, "You know, I'm probably not going to live much longer." "You're probably right," I said. "Why would you say that?" he countered, somewhat irritated. "Because you're 102 years old," I said. "Oh. Well," he said, "you're right about that." He stayed in bed all the next day. That night, I suggested to my son and daughter that we sit up with him through the night. He appreciated it, he said, though at one point, apparently seeing us look gloomy, he said, "I would like to make an announcement. No one in this room is dead yet." An hour or so later, he spoke his last words. "I want you to know," he said clearly and lucidly, "that I am in no pain. I am very comfortable, and I have had as happy a life as anyone on this earth could ever have." A short time later, he died. I miss him, and I think about him a lot. And I've wondered now and then how it was that my family and I were so lucky that he lived so long. I can't figure out if it was because he walked through life or because he quit taking left turns. This is a story of someone who passed on quite a while ago, but his story lives on. And you can hear and see the uniqueness in this character, right? Now, one of the things I want to leave us with today in terms of family traditions is look at the young people and the little kids who are in your family. What are the family stories that you've enjoyed that they don't know or that they haven't heard in a while? It may be time to tell them the story again. Do you have a photo album of when you were young or when your kids were young? Maybe you're talking to grandkids. Open those up and tell some stories from those pictures that will remind you of things, because those stories are meaningful to the next generation. My grandfather had a sister who wrote down some stories that she was told by their grandmother. And one of them I remember is that one of their uncles, when he was first married, had a big log fence around, or log wall that he had built around the house, which was a log house. And he also had a barn. I don't know if that was logs or what. He would go back and forth to finish with the cows and everything, and then come back through this wall that protected them from wild animals and all kinds of other things. And as he was walking back to the house from the barn, he realized he did not have his shotgun with him. And there was a mountain lion on the wall. And the mountain lion was pacing and looking at him as if, dinner had just presented itself. And he began to yell and call into the house for somebody to come out. But because of the logs, which insulated everything in the house and on the wall, they didn't hear him. He had to go back into the barn and hang out in there and just wait until the mountain lion got distracted and left or something, and he made it back into the house. Now, they all wondered why he'd been gone for so long, but no one had come to look for him. No one had come out with a shotgun to see if he was okay. And that's the kind of thing, it's like just imagining that I have a relative who lived in the country at a time when that could happen is a piece of information that I never knew. It's a story that nobody would have told me because it was my grandfather's grandmother who had told this story to one of his siblings. And if she hadn't written it down, I would never have heard of it. And I think it's an interesting little tale, you see. So take stories, even stories that are just everyday kind of things like that, and pass them on to the next generation. They need to know where they came from and what's available to them. And maybe if you're getting up there and you're still driving, think about giving up left turns. Namaste. Let's go ahead and anchor this within. So let's just turn within now, knowing that we are all connected in the infinite one, even though we are all unique. I speak this word in recognition of that wholeness, of that connection to all that is and all that was and all that is coming forward. I know for each one of us right now that we are anchored in a chosen family, in a spiritual family, in a human family, and in our own family. And these connections go deep and long. We allow those to bubble to the surface, to be appreciated, to be cherished, and to send our love out to all of those family members anywhere in the world who have wandered away into their own path that we may not understand or know nothing about or know anything about. And so we bless each member here. We bless all those online. We bless our families, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever they're up to, and hold them in our hearts. We know whole, complete, and perfect lives are unfolding through us, and it is all right. So we release this prayer into the heart of God, where it has always been the truth of all of us. We release this prayer into the law that acts upon it and anchors it in form and reality now. We let it go and let it unfold. And together we say, and so it is. Stand and join me now for the morning affirmation. As we say together, the sacred has always been here, and it's in me too. My family traditions created sharing ways of honoring holidays. I open this Easter week with loving kindness toward all families, and so it is. You may be seated. Would the ushers please come forward? It is our sacred giving time, and right now we want to bless all of the offering, everything that's being given here and all that's been given to Golden Gate in this past week, including the blessing of our presence, every one of us. If you're online and you'd like to make a contribution, we would particularly welcome that. This has been a skinny time for us, and so we would really welcome those donations. So if you are online and you'd like to give, you can text a dollar amount you'd like to give to the number on the screen. We would welcome that. And for all of us here, we're going to prepare to bless this offering. And I want to let you know, next week, for our 43rd anniversary and Easter, we're going to have a 5-piece band up here.
Wow.
Therefore, if you would like to make an extra donation to help us cover the music next week, that would be great. But we just want to let you know, you're not going to want to miss next week. So let's bless this offering right now together, including blessing ourselves. Put your hands over your heart as we say, "This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time." And so it is. Go ahead, Christine.
The words of this song are by the poet Rumi, a medieval poet who made many references to Jesus and the Christ consciousness, actually. But this poem is about the divine and how the divine comes through us when we are together and becomes amplified by the love in our hearts. And he has a beautiful image for the divine, the inner divine. It's called the friend. So you'll hear a reference to the friend. It's called In Every Gathering. In every gathering, in any chance meeting, on the street, there is a shine, an elegance rising up. Today, I recognize that jewel-like beauty is the presence, our loving compassion, the glow in which watery clay gets brighter than fire, the one we call the friend. I begged, is there a way into you? A ladder. Your head is the ladder. Bring it down. Under your feet, the mind, this globe of awareness is a starry universe that when you push off from it with your foot, 1,000 new roads become clear as you yourself do at dawn, shot through with light. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. All right. So on behalf of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, all of us here accept this offering, and we send it out into the world to shine light into our families everywhere and give them love. And so it is. If you're with us for the first time this morning, there is a welcome table back here behind this section of chairs with all kinds of little goodies you can pick up and take with you. Please feel free to do that. And make sure that you get a welcome packet. That's the larger envelope that says welcome on it. Take the blue card out that's inside it, fill it out, turn it in back there. We're going to give you a little book called Nourishing Thoughts, which is our gift to you as a thank you for being here and also your invitation to come back. And for those of you who are here regularly, if you have a stack of Science of Mind magazines at home that are old ones, we would welcome you donating those because we want to put them into welcome packets so that people get a copy of the magazine. So if you have old ones you don't know what to do with, bring them on Sunday, we'll figure it out, all right? And also, I want to let you know too, all of you, that Christine has a mailing list over here at the coffee service area. So feel free to sign up to be on her mailing list so you know what's going on and what's coming up. Also, I want to thank everybody that's been involved in putting this together today. Unfortunately, Karen Frost threw her back out, so she couldn't help today, and Randy put this all together himself. You might notice that there is, up here on the altar, over in that corner, there's a little old lady. Randy said he was going to get in trouble, but he brought that in honor of Karen not being here, so don't tell her. Okay? Karen, you didn't hear that from me. All right. So let's thank everyone for helping set up today and Christine for being here to do our music for us today. Also, Easter is next Sunday, and we're going to have a great time. I have the most amazing flowers. If you want to bring a flower or buy a flower to contribute to the decorations, then you'll be able to take that home with you. But I think I have so many in the big arrangements that we're probably fine now with those. Beautiful flowers, wonderful music, sumptuous potluck. This is a part of what you are included in. If you have not yet signed up for what you're going to bring next Sunday, please do that today, because I'm going to take those sign-up sheets with me when I go so I know what we've already got coming, okay? So please make sure you sign up this morning so that we know that we have enough food for everyone. There's nothing worse than having a potluck and being the one who got there too late to get anything to eat. And we might have extra people next week who aren't here today and can't sign up for food, yeah? So we want to make sure they're welcome. In 2 weeks, Dr. Barbara Leger will be our guest speaker. She's going to be here that morning, and she's going to be talking about 3 simple daily dots kind of that increase our gratitude. And gratitude is a big one in terms of drawing more good into our lives. She says gratitude is a bridge connecting peace to all our other choices. It makes the journey much more synchronistic. So rather than having our Ukraine table next week on the first Sunday of the month, because it's Easter and everything else, we're going to wait and have it the Sunday that Dr. Barbara will be here. So she'll be over here at the Ukraine table. You can talk to her. You can see the little goodies that they have for sale, do some of the encouragement cards that we're sending to Ukraine. And so we encourage you to participate with that next week, as well as getting your food and all of that good stuff. Coffee and Faith Sharing is coming up April 8th, which is the second Wednesday of the month. That is at Cafe Aroma on 4th in San Rafael. There's no charge to attend, just that you buy your own coffee. And you can enter a lively conversation that's facilitated by our prayer practitioner, Leslie Giannetti. Also, our San Francisco Marin Food Bank group is going to be going to the San Rafael warehouse on Tuesday, April 14th from noon to 2 to pack food that will go out to distribution centers for those who are in food insecurity right now. Ellen Nicosia is our person who coordinates that. Please talk to her or make sure and contact her by phone or email to text her or send her a message and let her know if you'd like to be on the April team. She needs that info by the 7th of April. And last but not least, please remember, Joyce is on duty today to pray with you following the service. Please take advantage of that gift. And also you can put a request in the prayer box, and that will be prayed over for this coming week. So those are options in the prayer vein, which we really treasure. And on that note, I'd like to invite the practitioners to surround the room now as we pray out for Palm Sunday. And we're all going to be knowing the larger truth for you as we move into Passover and Easter. This room, this is interesting because most of our practitioners are over here, maybe all of them. Could we have one or two sort of a little closer to the other side? That'd be great. I mean, we can't very well enfold everybody if there's only, I guess it could be a wave, couldn't it? It could be a wave, yeah. So let's turn within together. There is one life, one mind, one presence, and it is everywhere in its fullness. That presence is within all of us. And that is an infinite consciousness of love. In this moment, I know for everyone here, for everyone that views this video, for everyone present with us online, that right where we are, God is. And the mind of God within us knows what we need to know to move forward this week on our own unique path of unfoldment and awareness. And we welcome that guidance, that knowing, that intuition that leads us forward in the highest and best ways for our own lives, for our life as a community, as a state, a country, and a world. We give thanks for this guidance around us and within us. We let go right now of everything unlike it, of everything we think everybody else should do, and we turn instead to that guidance within us, that deep knowingness, and we listen and open to that as we step into this Holy Week with gratitude. We let this prayer go to unfold perfectly for us, and together we claim this as we say, and so it is. Yes. Please stand and join us for the closing blessing and song. You can take hands with others if you want to do that. And we say, I now walk, so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God. And whoever places a hand in mine is lifted. And whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness. For spirit and all people and I are one eternally. And so it is. And here is our closing. This is another Michael Stillwater.
There is a river in me. It's always flowing onto the sea. There is a river in me of love, of love, of love. There is And I also want to let you know, I happen to have 2 concerts happening this afternoon at my healing studio in San Rafael. Today at 3 p.m., 3 to 4:30, or 6:30 to 8 p.m. So you can come receive more healing harp music with me this afternoon. And I have flyers over at my email list over by the coffee station. Thank you.